And welcome everybody to another episode of Fins Nation. I am your host, Louis Sung, and today I am joined by my Pulse of Fins Nation co-host, Ron Canniff, to talk about possibly the greatest game that we have ever seen in Miami Dolphins history, if any, at least modern history anyway. I'm sure that there are some
modern history, besides winning, 17-0 Super Bowl or something, something like that.
I don't know, Ron.
Greatest regular season game in Dolphins history, probably.
You even in the Marino years, you can't think of anything that even comes close?
Okay. So in the Marino years, the comparative games, man, this is actually exciting to think about. The first one that pops in my mind is when Marino came back from the Achilles injury. So that would have been, I think, the 93 or 94 season. And him and Drew Bledsoe had this epic freaking like shootout where both of them had like 400 and something yards. And I think Marino had 5 touchdowns and Bledsoe had 400 something yards and 4 touchdowns. And it was the game. It was the first game of the season. He came back from Achilles. Like, that was an absolutely epic game. The Dolphins, and this was the year before when the Dolphins won in Dallas in the snow game, when Leon Lett touched the blocked field goal, and then we kicked the field goal to win. That whole game was really cool. The Miami Dolphins had a good offense, even though they didn't have Marino, but they had Scott Mitchell, and they had this really good offense. So that was a fun game. You know what, though?
The game that you're talking about.
I'm going to go. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say the game that you're talking about was, in fact, in 1994. Dolphins beat the Patriots 39-35, and Drew Bledsoe went 32 out of 51 for 421 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Marino went 23 of 42, 473 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. So
and then I'll name a couple others. The Wildcat game, week 3 of the 2008 season. Mm-hmm. Right when we broke out the Wildcat with Ronnie Brown, he had 5 total touchdowns. That's another big one. Then another game, but this one kept going. So the difference between this game and the game I'm going to mention was you saw the graphic about how Tannehill opened the game with 18 or 19 straight completions, something like that, or 20, whatever the record was.
Tannehill had 18 completions. He was, by the way, Tua Tagovailoa was 1 shy. He was
Tua got 17. Yeah, so 18 straight completions. That game, if I am not mistaken, was against Houston. And we were up like 35-0 in the first half. And I believe between the two games, Tannehill also broke the record for consecutive completions, like in the NFL. I think he might still hold it. So more modern history, Wildcat game, and that game against Houston, that was kind of what this felt like. More than anything. The shootout with Marino and Bledsoe, I mean, that was kind of a different type because it was like the game was in doubt a lot of times because they were so back and forth. This was never the case, that's for sure, as was the situation with Wildcat game and Tannehill's big game with Houston and everything.
That was Dan Campbell coming in.
Man Campbell, that was the first Man Campbell game. Yes, it was. Good call. I had forgotten about that.
Though made all the difference, I'll tell you that. Joe Philbin getting the boot and putting in Dan Campbell.
For a couple games, and because then we went to Tennessee or played against Tennessee, and we destroyed them too, like epically.
It was a fun time, but none more so than the Dolphins beating down the Denver Broncos by a score of 70-20. We'll talk about what our thoughts are, how we're feeling about this whole thing, how we're feeling about the Dolphins season at this point, because not just what we've already seen, but what we might see in the future, because this has ramifications, ladies and gentlemen, for what we could potentially see. We have to reevaluate what our expectations are for this Miami Dolphins offense. But before that, really quick, just want to go ahead and mention that this show is brought to you, as always, by our good friends over at PrizePicks.com. PrizePicks.com is a revolutionary fantasy platform where you can now pick up to 6 different players across professional sports leagues. Whether that's the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, one of each, it's up to you to decide. Just choose whether your chosen player will get more or less than their projected stat. They give you free squares, special Taco Tuesday promos, Flex Friday special where you can get your money back if you lose, or multiply the amount of money you can normally win. So with offers like that, it's hard to justify not signing up if you're any kind of a fantasy sports fan. So use the promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. Again, it's promo code 5, FIVE. Go to prizepicks.com, deposit your $100, and let PrizePicks give you $100 of their dollars for you to play with and get started winning today. And of course, this show is also brought to you by the Biscayne Bay Brewing Company. They are the only brewing company in the downtown Miami area, locally and independently owned. They are the official lager of the Miami Marlins and partners of the Miami Heat. If you're looking for a place to watch the football games on Sunday, make sure you head on over to Biscayne Bay Brewing. They do have $6 beers available, as well as some other drinks for you to check out. Awesome food, awesome environment. And of course, there are going to be several times where we at the 5 Reasons Sports Network will be there to watch the game with you. So make
I
sure you
hope
check
that's
it out.
next week, because I wouldn't mind coming down.
We're to be determined.
Yes,
Ron.
we shall see.
So Biscayne Bay Brewing Company, make sure you head on over there. Proud sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. All right, Ron. So what I want to talk about really quick, and I want to get your thoughts on this. When we did preseason, and we were doing training camp, and we would do our shows, and we would talk about what our expectations were for the Miami Dolphins, and we went through the schedule. We talked about this. We looked at this team and said, okay, this is what we expect to win here. We had Alfredo Arteaga jokingly say, "Oh, they're going to go 17-0." Like that was his quote unquote official. His official expectation.
Almost a little tongue in cheek, and he's probably slowly taking the tongue out of the cheek game by game and just saying it outright. They're going 17-0.
But if we're being dead honest with ourselves, Ron, what the Miami Dolphins did against the Denver Broncos, they put up numbers that we have not seen in over 30 years. Like I was not alive. Heck, my father was barely alive the last time that we had seen teams do this kind of stuff in the NFL. And so just knowing what kind of an offense the Dolphins have, you want to talk, if anybody wants to talk about that the Denver Broncos have a terrible defense, oh, they're being coached by Vance Joseph, it's not the same. My poor new friend, Sofia Ramirez, who a Denver Broncos fan, she told me she expected the Broncos to lose. I don't think she was expecting it to be this bad, but Gio Rivero, obviously it's a major downgrade to Vance Joseph, but even then, people were talking about that the Denver Broncos were able to hold off some other teams. They still had some talent on that side of the ball, and they do have some talent on that side of the ball. Patrick Surtain is still there. It's not like he's a joke. He's no slouch, but even still, Tyreek Hill had himself a game, and that was against Patrick Surtain. At some point, you have to look at this offense. If not the defense, never mind the defense right now. We'll talk about the defense, I'm sure. But the offense, this is an offense that I have never, ever seen. Like we talk about greatest show on turf, greatest show on surf, whatever you want to call this Dolphins offense. These guys are unstoppable. Even if teams manage to slow them down, the expectation is still that the Dolphins could score at least 30 per game. Even if you manage to slow them down. Like if you can't slow them down, if you manage to make mistakes like Denver did, it is very plausible that Dolphins could easily put up 50 on you every single game. You cannot afford to make any mistakes on defense, or they're going to run roughshod all over you. That is what Mike McDaniel is doing, and that is what Tua Tagovailoa is doing
too. Yeah. And Tyreek too. His understanding of this offense and where to be and where to go is, and the whole offense in general, like what to do and where to go in this situation and where I should float to in that situation, and kind of like they're just like finding pockets, and Tua's just delivering, and they're in the receiver and the quarterback are just in stride with it, and McDaniel's just calling up all the right plays at the exact right time. It's just working like I've never seen it work before in my life. I mean, truly.
And remember, this is on the heels of last season when, even as great as the offense was, there were obviously things that we did not appreciate. We did not appreciate that they were not running the ball very effectively. And even when they were running it, they wouldn't keep running it. That was a frustration we had with Mike McDaniel. That's no longer an issue. We had issues with pre-snap penalties. They would not get the play in time. There was delay of game, and they keep taking stupid timeouts to try to get themselves reevaluated. That is no longer an issue. I don't think they've had a single delay of game all season so far, and it's been 3 games. That was a season that was something that plagued them all year long last year, and now it has not. It's gone. And of all things, Ron, the offensive line, Teron Armstead came back for the first time against the Broncos, and even before that, they had only let up 1 sack to Tua. And you can talk about whether it was the time he had to release the ball. You can talk about how good they are blocking. It's improved. Butch Barry, people were talking about Butch Barry like he was like the scum of the earth in Denver. Butch Barry came in. He's made an impact. You can't look at this offensive line.
There's no way you can say he's not. I mean, come on. I mean, you talk about like a difference. And you know, it's interesting too. And I was thinking about this just because any chance I get to dog on Peyton at this point, I do just because
Sean
for all,
Payton, yeah.
yeah, Sean Payton, just for all the crap he talked about too, man. But I don't mind when people talk poorly about a part of the Dolphins team. I'm not sensitive like that. I mind when what you're saying is so inaccurate and you're supposed to be a Hall of Fame Super Bowl quarterback. Like, bro, come on, man. Like, be better. Like the crap you were saying.
A Hall of Fame coach, yeah.
Yeah, when you're supposed to be a Hall of Fame coach, the crap he was just saying was ridiculous. But I was just sitting there thinking about Peyton, you know, and just how he was just talking all that crap, and then he was just getting crushed, bro. He was just getting just play after play after play after play, just getting crushed, and it
And
was just
eventually the prophecy fulfilled itself, Ron.
yeah,
Tua
it did.
Tagovailoa did get benched.
Oh
After
yeah,
they
there you
scored.
go. You're right.
He,
Yeah,
he
totally
got benched
Yeah, he got
after
benched
in the
'cause
fourth quarter
he
because they
got
had
benched
scored
for being
many
too good of a
points.
player.
They-
Bottom
Tua-
line.
yeah. And even then, Mike White managed to score on them. So
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, that's great.
So I'm sure that Sean Payton is he better be thinking twice about talking about Tua at this point. Like if he ever talks about Tua badly again, I can't wait more than anything. Honestly, Ron, I cannot wait to hear what people like Skip Bayless have to say. I told you during post game that Skip Bayless has been hanging on for dear life to this narrative, and I think he's like the last
what is the narrative he's hanging on to?
that
exactly?
Tua is a soft armor. It's all Tyreek Hill. It's all Mike McDaniel.
Yeah.
Anybody could do what Tua's doing. He throws big balloon balls up into the air, and somehow miraculously Tyreek is open to grab
I
it.
guess he could he'll just hang on to that forever. I mean, he'll hang on to that as the Dolphins win the Super Bowl, hopefully. You know what I mean? Like that's my thought. I mean, Miami's just dangerous. You know what? The people on that team, you know, Keyshawn on that show now.
Even Keyshawn Johnson's
coming
up.
around, but Richard Sherman's a Tua guy, and Michael Irvin's a Tua guy. So they'll just tell Skip pretty much how wrong he is. I mean, bottom line, and you know, as I think it's through, I don't watch any ESPN shows, so the only shows I watch are on FS1 because I want to watch some sort of national stuff. I also watch First Things First, and Nick came around on Tua last year. Like he thought Tua and the Dolphins. Nick Wright, yeah, he thought Tua and the Dolphins were crap. Kevin Wiles, who's a big Patriots fan, he's kind of the sort of pseudo host of that show. He came around, and Broussard, he's been riding with Tua for a couple of years now. So I mean, there's a lot of these shows that these people are just coming around. But oh yeah, Kyle Brandt this morning with his comments about, oh, Denver's going to win this game because Waddle's missing and Surtain can just contain Hill.
Did he call him Surtain?
Yeah, I got Surtain, whatever his name is. He can just contain Hill. He'll just be with Hill, and they don't have Waddle. So that, to me, that's sliding McDaniel and sliding Tua even more. So what you're saying is the only reason Tua's doing well is because they have two fast receivers on the field in Waddle and Hill? No, Tua just proved that right away wrong. Nope, sorry, that's not the case. And McDaniel proved that he can have just Hill and do well. So we used to see, hey, you know what? Honestly, tell me how well Mahomes did when he had just one weapon, really. Like he did good, but was he, absolutely blow it out amazing? And then and because he used to have Tyreek and Kelsey. So now the Dolphins just really had the only true like weapon people were super nervous about was Hill. So McDaniel can scheme all kinds of things. He doesn't just have to scheme, oh, I got to have these two wide receivers and we go in 11 personnel and we just throw it deep in the middle of the field and that's all we have. He's just doing different things every single game and making the other team pay no matter what. Like he is really honed in on this play calling, man. And Tua is honed in on this offense. It's so awesome to see. So exciting. Man, we're a dangerous offense right now.
And this is
so dangerous.
And this is where I now ask the question. Now we have to reevaluate, I think, what exactly our expectations are for this football team. Because we looked at them and we said, well, maybe they have a shot to win the AFC East because, we still have to go through Buffalo. We still have to take down the Bills. And granted, the Bills are 2-1. The Miami's 3-0. So, there's still time for the division to play out a little bit differently. But if I had to choose between Buffalo and Miami. I'm just going to go ahead and really quickly pull up the Buffalo Bills schedule, right? Because I'm sure there are going to be people saying, oh, well, the Buffalo Bills had themselves a much more difficult situation than what the Miami Dolphins have had. So
No, they
Buffalo,
haven't.
exactly, but that's what I'm saying. Buffalo, as of right now, has faced the New York Jets, who they lost in overtime to in week 1 to Zach Wilson, not
To Zach
Aaron
Wilson,
Rodgers. Zach
who
Wilson,
hasn't won since. Who's
who
been
hasn't done
total trash
anything.
since.
He's been
Yep.
awful since then. They beat Las Vegas 38-10.
Who
Okay, it's Las
isn't
Vegas.
really that good of a team.
Right, it's the Las Vegas Raiders. You expect me to be scared of Jimmy Garoppolo?
And lost last week. Yeah, they're not. No, they're not a
right.
hard team.
And then you have the Commanders, who they beat 37-3. Again,
Sam
it's
Howell
the
threw 4
Commander
picks
Sam
today.
Howell, who threw 4 interceptions to Buffalo.
Yeah, and people were talking him up too. And I actually kind of like Sam Howell, and I think he'll get past this. And you have bad games sometimes, but this isn't Commanders Nation, so we'll continue on with talking about the Dolphins.
Yeah, but this is what I'm
you're
saying.
right, though. You're right. The Bills have faced nobody. Their schedule hasn't been half as tough as ours. Not even half as tough.
Yeah, we've already faced the Chargers, which is Justin Herbert, and everybody talked about Herbert like he's one of the greatest things to ever come out of college. Which, as far as between the first and third quarters, fine. It's the fourth quarter where things go sour for him. So yeah, their offense on Chargers is dangerous. Still beat them. So yeah, and then New England, obviously, it's a rival game. We beat our rivals. And the Jets beat the Buffalo Bills, so take of that what you will. So
we won on the road in the AFC. Huge. That's huge.
And then obviously the Commanders for Buffalo. Are you kidding? And we beat the Broncos. And we beat the Broncos so badly that it was almost the NFL record for points scored in a single game. And the only reason we did not was because Mike McDaniel consciously made the decision not to do it for the sake of just being respectful to the other team.
We talked about it on the Final Yard when we did the post-game show. I agreed with that decision. You did not. I understand how you feel. I hope you understand how I feel, sir. One big thing, though, I want to mention for the Dolphins' 3 wins is they're all 3 AFC wins, number one. Number two, they're all 3 AFC teams that at least quite a bit or somewhat have or had playoff aspirations. The Chargers for sure, Denver absolutely, and even the Patriots trying to figure out if they can manage their way there with some good defense, right? Because that's what they do, and they usually win a few games they shouldn't and have a better record than you think they're going to.
Well, they beat the Jets
at
today,
least 2 of the 3 teams were teams that are fighting and competing for the playoffs. And they were all AFC teams. Man, that is huge for the end of the year. Even if we say we end up like 11-5 or 12-15 or something for the seeding and everything like that, that's big. It matters. It really does matter. So kudos to Miami for taking care of business with their AFC schedule, 2 on the road. And we're 9 home games this year and 1 neutral site. So I mean and we don't play one team the entire year that has more rest than we had. Not one. So I understand that the Dolphins have a tough schedule when you look at the teams they play, but the way this is setting up for Miami now, and they're taking care of business, man, I think, to go to your point, resetting expectations, we should absolutely be winning the AFC East. Like, even if we split with Buffalo, we should be winning the AFC East, and we are an absolute contender, is equal to the Chiefs and other teams to get to the Super Bowl. Like, we're an equal contender.
As of right now, absolutely. And that's even with, remember, there's still a lot of talent that the Dolphins are expected to get back. If I just look at the roster, like we still don't even have Jalen Ramsey.
We'll have Ramsey. I don't know. Hopefully. Well, I mean, they were talking December originally, and maybe he gets back early.
Maybe he comes back earlier. Jalen Ramsey's still waiting to come back. Jeff Wilson Jr. as a backup running back still waiting to come back. Although I don't know if
I don't know how you even get him in right now. I mean,
no, right? Exactly.
With the 1-2 punch of Mostert and A-Chain. I mean, man.
Like I honestly have reached a point where it's like I have to have all Dolphins on my fantasy football team that I'm in from work because Tua, Tyreek, Raheem Mostert, and Devon A-Chain, they all scored at least 20 points in my fantasy league. If I had just had all 4 Dolphins on my roster and active, I would have won without anybody else.
A-Chain had 200 yards and 4 total touchdowns. I mean, the 4 touchdowns, there's 24. The 240, like, plus he had a few receptions. The dude had like in a half point PPR, like 45 fantasy points.
And by the way, that's those
45,
200 yards that you're talking about are just the rushing yards. That's not even counting the fact that he caught 30 more
Oh
from the
yeah,
4 catches.
yeah, you're right. Like he had like 46 or 47 fantasy points in most leagues, with the way most leagues score. Like if you want to get into the fantasy conversation about it, that's pretty insane. But as you know, on Pulse of Fins Nation, I've been talking big about A-Chain since May. That he was going to be the guy who was going to come in, he was going to take over that job. Now, he may not take over that job because Mostert has been superb. And no matter how good A-Chain's doing, he's going to keep trusting Mostert until he doesn't have a reason to. But Mostert's just so effective right now, even as good as A-Chain is. I might be wrong in saying that A-Chain will take over the starting spot. I think it's still Mostert, but then A-Chain's right there. Man, did he show his value. Now we see why when in the second round, he didn't draft A-Chain, right? Career didn't draft A-Chain, and we kind of saw McDaniels maybe a tiny bit outwardly pouting, right? With his feet up on his desk, like scrolling through his phone. To me, he looked a little pissy about it. Now you see why he was so excited about this guy. I think you get it. I think we all get it now. Well, I'm not surprised, but because I was been talking about it nonstop, but we see why.
So are we now willing to admit that maybe the need to go get Jonathan Taylor is very
There
overblown?
is no need. There is no point of spending even a 4th round pick in money to go get Jonathan Taylor. Unless something changes. Or Derrick Henry, if the Titans were to start the new quarterback and sell it off, so it's to kind of, see if you can get some good picks for Henry and start to rebuild, at least on the offensive side. If that were to happen. There is no reason to do it as of right now, based off the makeup of the team and who we have and who's healthy and how they're playing. Zero reason. Zero.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, man. I told y'all straight up. It's like, you don't need Jonathan Taylor.
No, you're right. You're 100% right.
So it's...
See, I wasn't big on, as you know, I wasn't big on Cook. And I think you were a little bit more because it was like a free signing.
It was a freebie. It's like,
we didn't have to get it.
Throw some money at him and call it a day.
I just wasn't on it because, and I just wasn't big on it. I just kept saying we've got it. But when we started going after Jonathan Taylor, I was way more into that. And it's funny, you weren't because you didn't want to spend the picks. But I think we both ended up being right in that regard. As far as we didn't need Cook for sure. I mean, dude, he's not that good anymore. He's kind of washed.
He's out of shape, is what it is.
Yeah, whatever it is. And we don't need, as of this point, to go try and trade for Jonathan Taylor. We absolutely don't. Let's just keep riding these guys. Wilson will come back. Like you said, Ramsey will come back. We'll get Waddle back. I think Waddle will be back next week. We wait to see. I guess the only other ones we wonder about are Connor Williams. That's a big loss. He's been a very good center. And Jalen Phillips, who we can absorb that more, as we saw, because Gink, man, Andrew the Van Ginkster, killing it, crushing it, baby. He's a baller.
Andrew Van Ginkel's a beast. Dude, but I will say this.
Those are the kind of guys, when you see teams win the Super Bowl and you watch the Super Bowl and you watch a team that you don't know as intimately as the Dolphins, right? But you kind of know these names a little bit and you see these guys and you're watching the Super Bowl and the playoffs and you're like, holy crap, that guy's really good. Holy crap, that guy's really good. Like, I didn't know much about him. Holy crap. And then in the Super Bowl, you can see Van Gink making big plays, right? Right? You can see him sacking Purdy. Bam, baby. Ooh, Gink with another big one. You know what I mean? Like, those are the kind of guys you could see making plays, like in a Super Bowl, that other people and other fans of other teams don't really know those names, but the guy's really good, man. He's so good.
And just for the sake of the record, what we heard from Mike McDaniel before we get any kind of medical updates is that he did say that the trainers did not seem particularly concerned about either Connor Williams or Jalen Phillips. So
that's good. I more worry about Williams than Phillips, even though we've been on him about the no snapping issues today from him at all.
No snapping issues against the Broncos that we can remember. Liam Eichenberg, for what it's worth.
One had one a little high. That was kind of about head high to Tua, but he handled it without issue. That was all we saw. No other issues, so that was good.
It's time we reevaluate what we expect from this team. I
already changed it, dude.
I know. I expect the Dolphins to win the AFC East. It's not maybe they win the AFC.
I expect them to win the AFC East. I expect them to go to the Super Bowl. That's where I am.
If they keep this up, absolutely. Like
Yeah.
it would be disappointing if they did not make it to the AFC Championship game. If they
Oh yeah,
continue
they
this
have
kind
to
of
at
play.
least get the AFC Championship game. That would be anything beyond that would be a complete and utter disappointment to me.
Yeah,
100%.
the standard that they have set, this is exactly what it is. Once a team starts playing to this level, to this caliber, you have to raise your expectations. You
You have to. Yep.
You
You're
cannot
right.
see your team play like this and continue to have the mentality of a bottom feeder.
Oh,
This is
yeah.
now a team.
Let's just win a playoff game. No, I'm way past. Let's just win
Yeah,
a
it's
playoff
like
game.
any given Sunday, just be lucky
And I
if
won't
they
sit
lead
here
with
and
a
say
win.
we need to have the number one overall seed too. There's only one. The only one team gets the bye week, and it can be tough. It can depend on your schedule, your situation, your division. You know what I mean? So it doesn't mean they'll get the number one overall seed and get the bye week, but they need to, either way. They need to be in that AFC Championship game, man. They shouldn't go to the playoffs and lose to the Bills. They shouldn't go to the playoffs and lose to the Bengals. I know those are good teams, but they shouldn't go and the Ravens, right? So the teams that people consider the best in the AFC, the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Bills, the Bengals.
Mm-hmm.
People would have thought the Jags, but they've been a disappointment so far. They really have. Like, I'm really surprised. I was thinking that Trevor Lawrence was really going to be like a top-notch quarterback this year. But I guess not. I remember at work, people laughing. I was just thinking about this. People laugh at me when I said if Tua's healthy, he's a top 2 or 3 quarterback in this league. And they, man, you're really a fan, man. And they were just like laughing at me. Yeah, laugh at me
same
now.
thing for me
They were trying to tell us that Jared Goff was as good as Tua.
Jared
Goff was better than Tua. Like, people were trying to tell me that at work this past offseason.
Okay, well, there have been some analysts in Boston who are saying that Mac Jones is still better than Tua.
I don't care what Boston, dude, they don't even know what they're doing with their lives now. They have no idea what they are just now beginning to understand what being mediocre is about, bro. They the most spoiled ass fan base in NFL history. 20 years of Brady and everything he accomplished and everything that team accomplished, and going to what? How many Super Bowls they go to? 8?
Yeah,
right. And won 6.
They had a dynasty,
or 7, or did they go to 9 and win 6? I think so. I think they went to 9, won 6 because they lost to Philly and lost to the Giants twice. They have no clue what they're in for. Like this, our team looks like a bunch of Dolphins teams have looked like. I mean, we've seen Dolphins teams that we thought were good and had a chance to compete look like that Patriots team, and just weren't there. They just weren't there. So I don't really care what Boston fans think or say or do, or they're journalists. They're it's terrible. They're just, they have no idea how to be journalists under these circumstances for their team, man. It's so mid Jones. Anyway, sorry.
No, it's fine. Listen, you're the Alabama guy, so if anybody knew the difference between Tua and Mac, it would be you.
I was never huge on Mac. Mac did pretty good at Bama, but he also had a track star, and I know Tua had a track team too. But you could see that Tua was way better than Mac Jones, dude. Way better. We're seeing the Tua now that we saw in Bama before the hip injury. Like, that's the Tua we're seeing right now. But honestly, better. He's better than he was then. I mean, you would think so, right? He's in the NFL, 4th season. But, man, it's so exciting to see this team. What McDaniel has meant for this team, guys. What McDaniel has meant for this team. He has meant for Tua.
And
wow.
And Mike McDaniel only got one interview for a head coach the entire time.
That's
Miami
it.
Dolphins.
He got one team to give him a shot. The guy wasn't even in the league for a few years because of all, we all know the stories now. We've seen the interviews. He's had a few in recent weeks about what he went through. Man, good for him. We have to keep McDaniel as our coach for like a long time.
For real, man.
He needs to be a lifer, man. Like, I need to have it. I can't ever see that guy
like this is
coaching for another team, even as an offensive coordinator, dude. It would crush me.
This is not the kind of success that you have where it's kind of like, well, maybe there's something there. If it's just a couple more years, maybe you'll get the Mike McDaniel is already like Adam Gase was supposed to be the genius, right? Everybody thought he was wonderful.
I remember when we thought Adam Gase.
We were hoping, we were
genius.
praying that Adam Gase was finally going to be the guy. Mike McDaniel has had more success in less than 2 years than Adam Gase ever had as a head coach, ever in Miami, in New York.
And as an offensive play caller, like, his offenses were terrible. Like, he was one of the bottom offenses. We were one of the bottom offenses in the league every damn year. He was our head coach, man. And he was supposed to be some offensive genius. And the Dolphins were what, 6 in total offense last year. And that was with Tua missing a bunch of games. And I'm not sure where they are this year, but probably
Number
close
one,
to first. It's
number one. They are.
I'm being facetious. I know they're far and away the best offense in the league this year. So it's at least statistically, and I believe
after the Denver game, absolutely.
Truly.
Like, who else can even compete?
That's going to be tough for a bit. Dolphins will definitely sit there, even if they have a few lower scoring games, at the number one scoring offense. And I wonder, and I can't wait to see all the stats this week once everybody plays. Are we the number one rushing and passing defense in the NFL, or offense in the NFL?
Offense, absolutely.
Like rushing and passing, like we're number one in both. To.
Like
it kind of feels like we probably are, right?
You have to be at this point. Who else even comes close? Who else has had that much?
Well, somebody could have a lot of passing and have surpassed us, but it'd be tough because Tua is now thrown for 400 something yards and 300 something yards. Like, he almost had 400 yards today again. So I don't know. I would think we'd be the number one passing, and we're probably the number one rushing, since we just rushed for 350 yards.
Here you go, Ron. I'm looking it up right now. As of 2023, Miami has 565 yards rushing, 8 rushing touchdowns. They lead the league in 20 plus rushes with 6. So, and by the way, in passing, same deal. The Dolphins are on just barely above the Vikings. Dolphins have 1,091 passing yards. Vikings are 1,075. They are tied with the Vikings with 9 touchdowns.
So we don't have the number one passing offense in the league.
We're
number 2 barely, but we are number 2.
We're number 1. We're number 1.
We're number 1
because we have a few more yards than them, and we're tied in touchdowns.
Okay, so we're number 1 in passing and rushing, both.
Tied for first in passing and number 1 in rushing by far.
That's crazy, dude.
And I thought
how many times do our teams ever at a point in the season where they're number 1 in both? Like, that's like never. Like never happens, dude. That never happens. That's nuts.
I don't think even the Marino years they had that, because they had no good running backs.
70.
If the Barry Sanders trade had happened, maybe
70 points. I mean, like I was saying in the after show, when it was 49-13, I thought, man, what a beatdown. Yeah. I never thought it'd be 70 to freaking 20. Jesus.
And again, I have to reiterate this. The only reason they did not break the NFL record is because
they chose not to.
They chose not
to break the NFL record. That's crazy, man. Well, I gotta go make some ham, man.
All right, man. All right.
It's ham and taters night.
This has been an amazing show. For those of you who are listening, it is, of course, Monday morning for you guys. So we appreciate you sticking with us. It has been an incredible week. I don't think I'm ever going to get over this. This is going to be incredible. But this has raised the expectations. The bar has been raised for these Dolphins. It is no longer, well, maybe we win the AFC East and maybe we win a playoff game. No. Now it's like get in the playoffs,
win the AFC East, maybe get the first seed,
get
maybe
to the
not.
championship,
get to the AFC championship game. Absolutely,
that is new expectations for a better team,
for sure.
All right. For those of you who are listening, make sure you go over to prizepicks.com. Use that promo code 5. That's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your deposit when you sign up. And of course, go to Biscayne Bay Brewing if you want to go ahead and get yourself some nice drinks, get yourself some good food, watch some football. They are the only brewery in downtown Miami, so make sure you're heading on over there. It's $6 on Sunday for beer, and of course, they are the official lager of the Miami Marlins, partners with the Miami Heat, and they'll help you out if you want to find a good place to watch the Miami Dolphins. So make sure you're tuned in on that. We'll be announcing any further watch parties in the future. So once again, thank you all for listening to Fins Nation. We will see you all Wednesday for another episode of Fins Nation.